perhaps it's a nice way to start, actually with a bit of chanting and perhaps a little sit. And just to give you in context, what I thought I would like to share with you this evening is actually the teaching on the reflections which help us to turn our minds towards the Dharma. They are called like the contemplations of four thoughts, which turn the mind towards the Dharma. They are found in the Tibetan tradition, but also in the Theravada tradition, perhaps not in a kind of the framework, but we find them across the teachings. And basically, they're very helpful to inspire us at times when we have come perhaps to the path and the practice, which most of us here probably have, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But at times when we find ourselves sometimes a bit confused or lost or doubtful, and we want to re-energize why we are practicing, why we come on the path, and to realign our motivation and aspiration for this path and to come together in Sangha and practice. So these four thoughts, they're usually in the Tibetan tradition, they are considered like the foundation for anyone who's coming to seek to come out of suffering, as a foundation to help them to turn the minds towards the Dharma. Why do we practice? Why do we in the first place, actually ask the question about suffering or the quest for liberation? And there are also then, as I say, useful reflection at any moment when we want to refresh and re-energize ourselves. And then what they typically lead to, these four thoughts, are to a sense of renunciation, a sense of aspiration to turn towards the Dharma, the Buddha, and the Sangha. And from there on, actually to practice for ourselves and to practice for the benefit of all beings. So with this small little introduction, I think it would be nice to actually chant together the precepts, the refuge. And then I would guide us a little bit in a meditation and then perhaps elaborate a little bit more about those thoughts, which may manifest also in the meditation. Okay. So I'm not sure whether we need to bring them up on screen or whether we can just chant it by heart. Perhaps we just go and chant them by heart. If anybody wants to bring them up by screen, you can do so, Amanda. And before we do it, really taking a moment and just touching in, perhaps present yourself with the question, what brought you here? And what does it mean for you right now in this moment to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha? And here the Buddha may not just be the historical figure, but also the potential, the seed for enlightenment, for full awakening within you, with all of us. The Dharma, that which is true, the nature of things, the teachings which help us to walk a path to freedom. And the Sangha, not just the disciples of the Buddha at the time of the Buddha, but us here right now, practicing and sitting together. So bringing that forth and allowing that to fill your voice, your belly, your being, as we're chanting 3 refuges together. And I start with the Namo Tassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammang saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranam gacchami, dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Tatyampi dhammang saranam gacchami. Tatyampi sangham saranam gacchami. And with that, just allowing yourself to find a seat, a posture which is supportive. We'll just meditate together perhaps for the next 20-25 minutes or so. So really invite this quality of awareness, mindfulness established right now as you're finding your seat and inviting a sense of wakefulness and at ease. So allowing the body-mind to settle without forcing it. And perhaps the chanting of the refuges, the sense of being here in community, may support you to find a place of ease, of commonality, of being here together, not alone, being held, being comforted. Whatever can be released in the body right now, intentionally, let it release. And particularly those places where we hold constrictions, like the face, around the eyes, the shoulders, and the hands, and down to the feet. And whatever cannot be released right now, see whether you can allow it, receive it, including it. Notice whether there's a tendency that the mind jumps forward, wanting to do something, wanting to change anything, having to improve or to calm the mind down. And right there, in the seeing, can it be released? Just now, we're arriving together, not going anywhere. It's just this body, sitting, breathing, being. And as you're sitting and breathing, perhaps you sense the aliveness in this body. Perhaps a field of vibration shimmering, the breath itself moving. There is sensing the body, sensing the breath, and hearing my voice. Hearing and listening to the silences in between. There might be the activity of thoughts, feelings, emotions. Nothing to be changed, just to be known in this moment of awareness. Sensing, hearing, cognizing, perhaps even smelling or tasting. Hearing. What's it like to be alive right now? What's the experience of being alive right now? Having the senses, the faculty to experience, to cognize, being a human being, what's it like right now sitting here? Seeing its many wonderful qualities, I rejoice and delight in this human life. The first reflection. Can you see these wonderful qualities of being alive and a human being right now? And rejoice, delighting in this human life right here. Preciousness of the human life. Notice if the mind goes into thinking and conceptualizing, whether you can invite it to notice and allow it to sense your direct experience of being alive. You may notice the movement of the breath ongoing. Whether felt in the belly, the chest, or below the nostrils, or perhaps in the whole of the body. Never standing still, providing this body with oxygen, keeping it alive. Perhaps noticing the heartbeat from moment to moment, pumping blood through the whole of the body, keeping us alive. And then there are thoughts, feelings, fluctuating, changing, arising, vanishing from moment to moment. Is there anything still? The whole of our being, the whole of life, a constant flow of change. What's it like? From the moment we are born until the moment we die, it's breath flowing in and flowing out. Who knows when it will be our last breath? Death is certain, but we don't know when. Perhaps the last breath might be the next one. Like waves in the ocean, all things are impermanent. I will accept whatever happens and make it my friend. Second reflection. Do you sense right now as all things are impermanent, like waves in the ocean? Your whole life. And meeting this experience of change and certainty with kind acceptance. Whatever happens, make it your friend. Letting go of the resistance to change. Allowing, receiving, flowing with, and attuning to the ongoingness of life. Life and death. Breathing in and breathing out. And perhaps you notice, however you meet the experience of this moment, whether there is aversion or craving or just allowing and receiving, how it shapes the quality of your mind right now. Is it constricted? Is it open? Is it alert? Tired? How is the body and the mind impacting each other right now? If there's kind receptivity of the experience you're having, perhaps you experience gentleness in the body. If there's resistance to what you experience, perhaps you experience tension or constriction in the body. See for yourself. Cause and effect, all interconnected, conditioned. This moment conditioning the next moment. A moment of awareness conditioning the next moment of awareness. A moment of kindness conditioning another moment of kindness. Third reflection. When causes and conditions come together, a result is sure to follow. So I will do my best to help others and engage in positive deeds. What arises when you hear this in the body? What is sensed? What is being conditioned in this moment? Conditioning the next, right here, right now. Is there knowing, or is there absence of knowing? Is there intention or delusion? And what is your intention right now? If you see if there's any clinging, wanting, figuring out in the mind, notice what's happening in the body. there tension, constriction, shrinking into thinking? Just noticing what's the experience of constriction, shrinking, if that's present for you. Right there, we experience suffering, even if it's just tiny. Suffering as constriction, the opposite of freedom. Right there can invite, release, let go, allow and receive, just as it is. Notice whether there's even a subtle preference, wanting it to be different. Your mind to be more still or focused or equanimous or kind. Noticing even the tendency to lean into the next moment, as if the next moment will do it for us. What's the experience of that? And what's it like to release it in the moment of awareness? Seeing clearly. The last reflection. The suffering of beings is mainly produced by the mind. I must free myself from my self-created bonds. What knot or bond is self-created right now? And where can you free yourself right now? In the body, in the mind. And coming to the end of this reflection meditation, just let everything go. If there's any doing, aiming, thinking, just sit and be. Let go of the contemplation and meditation. Just rest. So just noticing what's it like now to open your eyes and seeing each other come back on the screen. Perhaps another moment of waking up, coming alive, being alive. So what we've just practiced together is those 4 thoughts which help us to turn the mind towards the Dharma. And in fact, in this version of these reflections I read out, it's not only to reflect on those 4 things, but also how we meet the experience. So it's like a very nice support how we can actually practice that. So these 4 thoughts are meant as a contemplation, as a meditation, rather than cognitively or intellectually study it or go and put our teeth in it, but actually they are there. We can call upon. Some traditions even use those thoughts to contemplate in the morning, first thing, all the 4 of them or just one of them, or any time in the day when we want to arouse a sense of purpose, a sense of motivation, and how often we're going through life or through our day like half asleep. And that's okay. Doesn't mean sleepiness, but just kind of not meeting the moment and the experience which is right in front of us. And it's beyond, sitting on the meditation cushion. It's really like, what's this moment which I don't like right now? Somebody is, not behaving in the way I want, or I'm just not fully there. There's this tendency of, there will be plenty of other moments, and I can just be kind of a bit half asleep. And this is where we can, for example, bring the thought of the preciousness of the human life to mind, just feeling into us with it in meditation. What's it be to be alive? We take it for granted. We take it even for granted to be a human being. Put yourself in the shoes of a turtle or a fish. We have these 6 sense doors. I don't know what's it like for a turtle. Here in the house where I am, there's a turtle, so I'm watching and having a little bit of a chat with her. And imagine what's it like to be, in this shell. What's it like for her to be a turtle, and whether the turtle is aware of their turtleness. So coming back to what's it like to be a human being, and what are the faculties we have, the six sense doors, the skills, the talents, the intellect, the capacity to discern, to think laterally, to make sense of things, and to practice the Dharma. So also, what are the circumstances we're in? For example, right now, coming here together on a Saturday evening, again, think about, you could do many different things, but you decided to come here. But still, we have the circumstances for us to be practicing the Dharma, to come here. We don't have to be concerned only with our survival, like many other folks may be doing on this planet. So there's certain things we have as human beings, and particularly we now being here, that allow us to practice the Dharma. So in those moments when we are kind of feeling, half asleep, not really knowing what's happening, and that just means awareness is not present. Don't have to change our experience, but to know what's happening. It can bring us that sense of aliveness, coming back to this moment, making best use of this moment, and just sensing into the preciousness of the human life. Perhaps recalling also friends, relationships, the capacity to relate to other beings. Again, I wouldn't want to exclude any other forms of life, like fish or turtles or deer, also relate to each other, but I don't know how they relate. I know what's it like to relate as a human being, and how beautiful, how enriching it can be to develop this capacity of relating, and how painful and damaging and devastating the very capacity of relationship can be as well. So there's a source of suffering and a source of happiness. And sometimes even relationship itself can become a source for freedom, doorway for insight. So this first reflection is really inviting us, in whatever way feels appropriate for you, whether it's in formal meditation or throughout the day, to just pause for a moment. And for me, simply it helps the question, what's it like to be alive? What am I grateful for? And what's it like to be a human being right now in Massachusetts, sitting in a warm apartment with a computer and being able to connect with all of you? Just this. And then on the back of that, if we connect with this preciousness of human life, we also touch directly on the aspect of impermanence. Because this life we're living now, the sense of aliveness, won't last. Certainly, when we do our last breath, the life of our bodies will be gone, and we may not even be aware of how it feels like to be dead. I don't know. But it's touching right there, this preciousness of human life and the truth of impermanence. And as most of us have been around in these Dharma circles and meditation circles for a while, it's not the first time that we hear about impermanence. And, we may have understood it, we have studied it, we have read the suttas, and, sometimes we see it, but actually, let's be honest, are we living our lives based on the truth? At any moment, it can be finished, or I might be dying. So there's something really crucial about this truth on permanence, to actually experiencing it, to actually seeing it clearly as it is, not just cognitively, and then what it means to align our lives to that truth. So Kalu Rinpoche, he says, life is like a bubble. I often feel my life like, well, I'm now 55 and I lived 55 years and there will be still another, whatever, 30 years. Who knows? Maybe I don't even make it until tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm getting onto a plane to Argentina. Well, maybe we have a plane crash. I don't know. I remember earlier this year, I was in Lithuania and I had surgery. And I was 8 kilometers away from the border with Belarus, right at the time when they had maneuvers in Belarus, joint Russian and Belarus forces. And I remember leaving the little monastery I was in Klaipėda, which is on the Baltic Sea, where my Dharma sister lives and my temporary home was. And I was packing my little suitcase with an awareness of, well, who knows when I come back? Who knows what might happen? So I was preparing for the worst case scenario, because who knows what may happen if any soldiers may cross the border. So I went there and had surgery and also the rehab afterwards, sitting by the river. And everything was so peaceful, so pleasant, people so friendly. It is a place where lots of people come for rehabilitation. And sitting by the river, I was deliberately bringing up this contemplation of uncertainty, impermanence, and the prospect of death. Sitting there imagining, what would it be like if the tanks roll in and I'm shot dead? And the interesting thing is, as I was doing that day after day, it brought up so much aliveness, so much joy, so much connection with the people in the hospital, with the nurses, with the staff in the restaurant. Every bite I was eating became precious. So I was very powerful just by bringing both thoughts, the preciousness of human life and the uncertainty of death and impermanence, right there together. And it made my awareness and my knowing much stronger than even if I sat for an hour or two on the cushion, just by facing the reality and contemplating. And I'm sure many of you here have lost perhaps a friend or a family member, and particularly when it has been sudden, how it has maybe thrown out you, and perhaps how it may even turn you towards something more meaningful, or the quest for how can I live my life more meaningfully. Some of us came even to the Dharma because of the experience of death, of impermanence, of a loss of a relationship, the loss of work, suddenly being thrown out, and here we are. So this reflection can be very powerful if we can bring it to our lived experience, not as an idea, not as a concept, but as it is. And that brings us to the next reflection. When causes and conditions come together, a result is sure to follow. So I will do my best to help others and engage in positive deeds. So the third reflection is on karma. And again, not karma as a concept, as we may or may not understand it, but as a lived experience. How does this moment shape the next? How does this moment of intention, whatever the intention might be, shape the next? So karma, not as an action in terms of having a result, but the intention and the motivation which is behind, which expresses itself in speech, what we say and what we do, So coming back to those moments where we are not aware, we're half asleep, it's very likely that our actions and our speech are driven by our habitual patterns. But when we are aware, the pattern may still play out, but we may not follow its urge or its force. And right there, we can decide and have a choice to plant a different seed. And even not reacting is a wholesome moment. So not underestimating these little moments. It doesn't mean to engage in positive deeds that we have to go out and change the world. We do by waking up to the moment as a consequence, but just noticing all these little moments in the day when we are planting seeds. Are we meeting our experience with kindness, acceptance, and allowing? Or are we meeting our experience with resistance, aversion, and pushing away? Right there, we're planting a seed. So there is this idea that we have to accumulate, many good deeds, and then eventually we can take it with us to heaven or to the Brahma worlds, but it doesn't quite work like that. So even then, kind of the understanding of karma is conditionality and interdependence. So we are not completely in control of what may happen in the next moment, but we can meet the experience with the right intention of renunciation, loving kindness, and compassion. There's a little story of a couple, and the husband was quite sick, so he was soon going to die. So he instructed his wife when he dies that she should please get all the wealth together and all the money together, put it in a suitcase, and please put it under the roof, not below in the apartment of his bedroom, but on the roof, because his notion is when he's going to die, he will go to heaven and he will take all the suitcases with the money with him. Well, the day came, he died. The wife had already prepared a suitcase with the money up there. And a few days later, she completely forgot she checked. Well, the suitcases were still there. So now there are two conclusions. Either he didn't go to heaven, but went straight to hell. Or the second conclusion is simply, well, you cannot take anything with you, whatever wealth you have accumulated. So that relates to the second reflection of impermanence, of the tendency of wanting to accumulate material things. But it also relates, we cannot accumulate, immaterial things either. As soon as there's any craving or clinging in our positive actions, the intention is not wholesome. So it doesn't help if we give all our things away and do positive deeds, help others to boost our sense of self, to be good people, to improve ourselves, or to expect something in return. It just doesn't work like this. It's a wholesome action if we give just because of giving, without reason, just because of care, of the genuine wish for ourselves and for others to be happy. That seed, that intention creates wholesome karma. And likewise, whenever there's a moment of anger, a moment of fear, somebody yelling at us, or we're, having our toe hit by mistake against the wall, are we reacting? Or can we be present? Can we be present with the pain in the toe without damming the wall? Can we be present with the other yelling at us, seeing their suffering, bearing witness, knowing they're acting from a place of suffering, even if it's unpleasant for us, and we may not know how to react, we can be present and not react from a habitual place. So these are the moments where we can use to plant positive seeds. So one of the practices with this karma as a reflection is doing it at nighttime. I met one wonderful lady in her 70s in Spain when I was walking the Camino, the pilgrimage. And she was volunteering in one of the pilgrimage hostels. And she was so inspiring. She wasn't a Buddhist practitioner. She didn't even meditate. I invited her every day and stayed there for a week to come and meditate. She said, no, that's not for me. Can't calm my mind is too busy. And yet she had her practice every evening before she went to bed. She would take about 15, 20 minutes, lie down straight, and then go over the day, reflecting on all the good things she has received from others, whether by deed or speech or acts of kindness. And then she was reflecting on her own. And that's not to self-indulge, but it's actually bringing a sense of gladness, a sense of inspiration, a sense of possibility, recollecting whatever she has offered to herself and other beings. And then also remembering the moments where she may have harmed herself or others, not with a sense of guilt, not with a sense of blame, but knowing the pain it has caused and recommitting to a life in the next day of non-harming. And still, we may harm the next day, and we may harm 100,000 times, but then we may also not harm 1,000,000 times. So just this practice that she has been doing for over 10 years when I met her had started when she faced death. With the experience of a heart attack, she committed herself to that practice from that day on. And boy, I felt she was a much greater Dharma practitioner than I was, without being Buddhist, without sitting on a meditation cushion. And then there's the four reflection. The suffering of beings is mainly produced by the mind. I must free myself from my self-created bonds. What brought you to this path of meditation? What brought you even here tonight? What makes you even listen together? You could actually go to the movies or watch a show or meet with friends. So what is it? So this reflection again invites us not to do the things out of habit. It's like to wake us up of the complacency, even if it's wholesome, of coming to Dharma class, to really refresh, what is it? What is calling me? What is my quest? Why am I practicing? Not just because I practice. Why? And right there, we're meeting the possibility of freedom and the pain of suffering. So this reflection is relating traditionally to the cyclic existence in samsara, which is being perpetuated by ignorance, going around and around and around. But we can see that in our minds. We can also see how we are creating often our own suffering. So there is traditionally the suffering of suffering, which is being related to the human condition. Here we come into this life. And from the moment we are born, it's very clear that we will die, as we just spoke earlier about. There will be sickness, there will be aging, and there will be death. And none of them is really pleasant. So their suffering is built into our human existence. There is no escape. That's the deal. Being a human being, having all the wonderful endowments and freedoms, and we also come with this level of suffering into it. And at the same time, these very sufferings can become a doorway to insight and wisdom. And then is the suffering of change, as we also touched on early on, the suffering of impermanence. If we resist it, if we resist that things are changing, that our relationships fall apart, that even our lives are falling apart, that's when we are suffering. But if we can see and align with the truth that everything is changing, our life is made up of change, we can align. Most of the time, we are trying to make our lives around change for things not to change. And we spend so much energy and time to control things and to have things in a certain way. And yet things are not in a certain way. So this is the suffering of change when we resist it. And then there's this third level, which is called the all-pervasive suffering. What is that? This is relating to, why are we here? What is it? What brings you here? In this traditional context, it's being considered this sense of looking for happiness. Where is it coming from? There's like a sense of incompleteness, of not enoughness. And I can get whatever I want, my chocolate cake, my nice place out in the garden, the breeze is pleasant, the sun is shining, and yet I'm sitting there, everything is perfect. And yet I feel it's not complete. It's not perfect. What is this experience of incompleteness? The hum of the fridge, some teacher has explained it. The fridge which is always humming. And we only know when it's unplugged. The hum is gone. We haven't even noticed that it was there all the time. But something underneath which keeps us longing and craving and accumulating, trying to figure, trying to fix. And that is this kind of all-pervasive suffering, which is also sometimes called a dissatisfaction, not enoughness. But at the same time, it's this very suffering which made us to come on the path, to look for something meaningful, to aspire for lasting happiness, not the chocolate cake happiness, not the vitamin C and the coffee happiness, but something which is lasting. And perhaps it may not be a high, but it may be a continuous contentment, a dwelling with things how they are, a dwelling and abiding in accepting how life is, to flow with life, to be of benefit to others, and to bring peace. So I shall pause here and leave a space before we can ask some questions. So just take a moment. Okay, so whatever may have resonated for you, whatever comment may have arisen in you, whatever question, whatever sharing, perhaps from your own experience, how you relate to these four reflections, these truths, perhaps what may have brought you on the path. So feel free, this is a space now to share, comment, or ask. The floor is open. Okay, Wood, go ahead.
Hello, Ayya. Thank you so much for this session. My question, I was reflecting on the last part you said about being of benefit to others. And I find it is somehow for me not always the easiest thing, because I find most people they are not so clear always or willing to share what they want or need. And my approach to that is often quite like, I just ask, is there something I can do for you? What do you need or want? And it feels like they're hiding or uncomfortable with sharing that. And so I wonder, how can I figure out, in a way, figure out like how to really be of benefit to people without that thing in between of, figuring it out, or I mean, somehow, Can you can you get what I'm saying? Can you speak about this a little bit? Yeah.
I think I hear what you're saying. This kind of benefiting others, what it means, and also in particular, like figuring it out. So when I hear you, the first thing which is arising, and that's also how I understand it in the first place, is by us practicing, you're already benefiting others. So we are often thinking about external, what we can do, and then figuring it out and all the rest of it. But actually, we may not be in touch with ourselves. So by wanting to help others, we are not even aware where our intention comes from. We are not even in touch with this body and mind. So in the first place, I would say benefiting others starts with you practicing one moment of mindfulness. Very simple. And of course, the more moments you are mindful, and that means you knowing what's happening in you, in your mind, in your body, and right there, the possibility of not reacting, you're already benefiting others and yourself, because you get to know yourself. So often it's not so much about figuring out what it's now the other needs or not. First of all, you need to figure out what you need. First of all, you need to know what's happening here. And that's the practice of awareness, and also how you relate to your experience, the non-reactivity. And often in that space of just pausing, not reacting, a different answer may come forth. So what might be needed in the moment for you and the other person may emerge from that place of pausing and not reacting, rather than of trying to figure out. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a little bit of a mind warp, but yeah, thank you.
Well, in a way, it's also, in a very simple way, it's like if somebody comes to you and asks you for help, that's very evident. Then you can decide, can I help them? Is it within my range or is it not within my range? And also being very present here, because often we may wish to help and we're kind of stretching ourselves and actually are leaving ourselves behind. So also checking in, what is it and where you can help and where you cannot help, and being honest about it. So it requires also awareness.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe I can continue on that question. Well, when I heard your answer, because I think I'm often more like thinking what to do. And I just felt this fear coming up when you were speaking, and this sense of like losing control in just acting from the moment and being aware. Like, how do you work with that fear of losing control?
Can you say a little bit more about, or give an example about the losing control?
Well, for me, I think it's a lot about I wanting to do this and that and that, and then I get really stressed and just kind of, okay, I do this because this is what I feel kind of in the moment when I try to do that, and not like planning, I'm gonna do this and then that, and if I do this and that, when I try to just like be in the moment, then this kind of fear of losing control comes up.
I hear you. Yeah. So I guess again, it's like a bit of a middle way of, I give you this example for this talk, for example, this evening. I did prepare something, but kind of loosely in a way. So I did prepare something, but then actually at the end, when I'm now here with all of you, I just then trust that whatever is being prepared will be available. So I didn't look at my notes. And whatever is also rising in this moment, hopefully, is the most appropriate. So there is this middle way between planning, but also not being attached to it. So again, here comes in the impermanence. So the kind of underlying truth of all of it is we are not in control. We are actually not in control. We are not even in control of our minds, let alone of what the outer circumstances are or other people. So in a way, we can smile about it. It's like so interesting. Our tendency is to control. And why is that? Because we want to be safe. As human beings, evolutionary, we need to survive, and we are geared to survival. So also to say, beyond all the Dharma, it's just kind of like, or part of the Dharma is we're just kind of human bodies, human beings, like any other animal, trying to survive. So it's built into. So it's another thing. We come into this world with this survival instinct, and we cannot really override it. So it's there. And we try as human beings to put things in place that we are safe. But the problem is if we're completely attached to it and lose sight of the impermanence of it. And the impermanence is related to we are not really in control. Things are being conditioned and interdependent. And even if I plan everything completely out, my journey tomorrow, how I'm getting to the airport and hopefully somebody gets me up in Buenos Aires or whatever. Well, maybe not. And from my own experience, sometimes it has not worked out. And I'm sure you have had that as well. But sometimes something else comes along. And often in these moments, even help is coming along. So again, I think there's this fundamental instinct of survival, wanting to control, meeting that with trust. How can we live with uncertainty, making plans, but also knowing ultimately we're not in control. So we're not being surprised if things turn out the other way. So it doesn't mean that we're just residing in the moment and let go of all of our responsibilities. We still take action and responsibility, at the same time being prepared that things turn out another way. So this is where the second reflection can be so helpful. But I understand you. We are. This is the practice path, between trust and fear, and they are kind of, countering each other. Thank you for that, Amanda. Good question. Thank you.
Hello, Ayya.
Hiya, Paula.
It's lovely to see you again. We've missed you. It's more of a reflection, but I hadn't heard of those 4 reflections before, probably because it's the Tibetan tradition, maybe, but I really like them. And, I have a health condition, and every time I get my bloods tested, they seem to be going in the wrong direction. So I have no control over that whatsoever. And I don't have much control at all, even over whether I start treatment or whatever. But the first reflection, can I make this my friend? That really, I thought, oh, can I make this situation my friend? And I see ways that I can, which is really, really wonderful. And then the fourth one, my mind is creating a lot of the suffering because my mind is like, oh, when am I going to die? The treatment's going to be terrible. I'm going to suffer terribly. It's my mind creating that. So I'm really going to use those 4 reflections, and probably I didn't understand the second one too well, but that's fine. There's a lot in them. So yeah, so kind of making the situations my friend. That's really, really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. But just to let you know, actually, the second is about making friend. The second was actually the one, like waves in the ocean, all things are impermanent. I will accept whatever happens and make it my friend. So
So I must have missed the first one then.
So I can share it also later with you, but that also relates to what Amanda says. It's like kind of that meeting experience and the change and not being in control like a friend, meeting the experience friendly. The first one was the preciousness of human life, to rejoice and delight in this capacity of being human. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really good, really useful.
I think we come nearly to the end, but there's one in the chat, so I will see whether I can at least respond to one. How do we stop comparing ourselves to others? And yes, I will share the reflections with you. Maybe I can email it to Amanda and Karina, if that's okay. Yeah, okay, great. So how can we stop comparing ourselves to others? Well, it's being said that conceit, which is basically the source of comparing, better, worse, same, different. All the four is conceit, in short, that this defilement will hang around for a long time. So, I think it's one of it just goes before arahantship. I don't know whether it's the anagami or sakadami, but one of them. So it's being a little bit, it will be around. So we better get used to this tendency and understand it well. So the thing is seeing it when it's present. And when we can see that we are comparing, we don't have to stop it. It may still run out. But the question is like, are we believing it? Do we believe the story that the other one is better and I'm worse? Are we that person? Am I inferior? Am I the same? Am I different? So the moment we believe it, that's when we have a problem. The moment we can see it, comparing is happening, at least we are out with one step. And then we have a choice how we act on it or not, because a lot of our activities or decisions are based on conceit and how we see the world. So that's my short answer. More could be said, but I'm aware we're already at the end of our time together.
Oh, thank you, Ayya. It was very nice having you, and it was very inspiring and helpful. Maybe as the short thing before we stop, we actually got confirmed just yesterday evening that we will have another Dhamma talk with Ajahn at January 10th about the fear and anxiety. But we will send information about that. But I just wanted to tell you. Yeah, and if you share with the reflections in an email, we can send it out to everyone.
I shall do that in the next 2 or 3 days. Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda.
Very kind. And thank you everyone for coming. It was so nice to be a group.
Thank you, everyone. And also, we can share the merits of our time together, and hopefully it's of benefit to all of us and those who are not present, all beings, this practice this evening. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Safe travels, Ayya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ayya. Bye.